My friends, the biggest question surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles right now is no longer whether Jalen Carter is one of the most talented defensive players on the roster. The real question is whether the organization is finally ready to reward him with the massive contract extension that so many fans have been expecting throughout the offseason. And based on everything happening around the team as training camp officially begins, it certainly feels like this story is reaching a critical moment. The Eagles have officially reported for training camp, and the first full team practice is about to begin. That alone changes the atmosphere around the organization. Once players are back in the building, contract situations suddenly become much more urgent. Nobody wants a distraction hanging over the locker room, especially when one of the franchise's most important defensive players is entering such an important stage of his career. Jalen Carter is entering his 4th NFL season, and Philadelphia already exercised his 5th-year option. That means his 2027 salary is guaranteed, so technically the Eagles still have him under contract for the next 2 seasons. There is no immediate deadline forcing the front office to complete a new deal today. But that does not mean the timing isn't becoming increasingly important. Everything points toward the Eagles wanting Carter to remain one of the pillars of this defense for many years. He is only 25 years old after celebrating his birthday on April 4th, and despite everything he has already accomplished, there is still a strong belief that he has not yet reached his full potential. That is a remarkable statement considering what he has already shown on an NFL field. Even with an injury-shortened season last year, Carter continued to prove why opposing offenses dedicate so much attention to him every single week. His ability to disrupt plays changes everything for the rest of Philadelphia's defensive front. Offensive lines frequently commit multiple blockers to slow him down, creating opportunities for everyone lined up beside him. That impact goes far beyond individual statistics. It changes the way an entire defense functions. There are also several reasons why negotiations may have taken longer than some fans expected. Last season was far from easy for Carter physically. He dealt with bilateral shoulder issues and appeared in only 11 games. Naturally, whenever a franchise prepares to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into one player, every medical detail becomes part of the evaluation. The Eagles reportedly believe Carter is a special talent, but they also want confidence that such an enormous investment is the right long-term decision after a season in which injuries prevented him from consistently playing at his highest level. There is another factor that cannot be ignored. During the 2024 season, Carter established himself as one of the most dominant defensive tackles in football, earning All-Pro recognition. Last season, while still highly productive, he was not quite as dominant on a week-to-week basis. That slight drop in consistency naturally becomes part of every conversation surrounding a long-term extension. Even so, the numbers continue to demonstrate just how disruptive he remained. His pass rush production placed him among the league's better defensive tackles. Despite appearing in only 11 games, he still finished among the NFL leaders in quarterback pressures, hurries, and pass breakups at his position. Those are remarkable totals considering the amount of football he missed. It reinforces something Eagles fans have witnessed firsthand. When Jalen Carter is healthy, he has the ability to completely take over football games. He doesn't simply record tackles or sacks. He forces offenses to redesign protection schemes. He commands double teams. He creates cleaner rushing lanes for teammates. His presence elevates everyone lining up next to him. One player who may have benefited more than anyone is Jordan Davis. The growth Davis displayed last season was significant, and it is difficult to overlook how much easier life becomes for the rest of the defensive line when Carter is demanding so much attention inside. Having 2 dominant interior defensive linemen creates problems that very few offensive lines can consistently solve. Of course, another major reason this contract discussion has intensified involves the overall market. The timing may not have worked in Philadelphia's favor. A new defensive tackle contract recently reset the market, meaning the Eagles could now find themselves paying significantly more than they might have several months ago. Philadelphia has built a reputation for extending cornerstone players before prices explode across the league. That strategy has worked repeatedly with several important players over the past few years, but this time, circumstances may have changed. With another elite defensive tackle establishing a new financial benchmark, the cost of keeping Carter could be substantially higher than originally anticipated. Waiting may have become much more expensive. Even so, there is little reason to believe the Eagles view letting Carter leave as a realistic option. Elite interior defensive linemen are among the hardest players to find in football. Once an organization develops one internally, the priority usually becomes keeping that player for the prime years of his career, rather than risking seeing him dominate somewhere else. There have also been encouraging signs throughout the offseason that Carter remains fully engaged with the organization. He attended OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Although he did not participate in every team drill, that decision made sense considering his recent shoulder issues and the obvious desire to avoid unnecessary injury before signing what could become one of the biggest contracts of his career. As training camp officially gets underway, every practice will naturally increase the attention surrounding these negotiations. Will an agreement arrive before practices intensify? Will both sides avoid any unnecessary distractions? Or could this storyline continue to grow until a deal is finally completed? Right now, everything seems to be building toward one of the biggest decisions of the Eagles offseason, and fans will be watching every development closely. What do you think the Eagles should do? Should they give Jalen Carter a massive extension immediately, or would you rather see the team wait a little longer before making that commitment? The timing of these negotiations becomes even more interesting because the Eagles have built a reputation for rewarding their core players before contract prices explode across the league. We've seen Philadelphia lock up important pieces of the roster before they reached free agency, giving the organization long-term stability while avoiding even larger financial commitments later. In Carter's situation, however, circumstances may have shifted. As the market for elite defensive tackles continues to rise, every day without an agreement has the potential to increase the eventual price tag. That doesn't necessarily mean the Eagles made a mistake by waiting. There were legitimate questions they needed answered after last season. Carter battled shoulder injuries throughout the year, and although he remained productive, the organization naturally wanted to evaluate both his health and his consistency before committing to one of the largest contracts in franchise history. When you're talking about a player who could become one of the highest paid defensive tackles in football, every detail matters. Still, if you look strictly at what Carter accomplished while he was on the field, it's easy to understand why Philadelphia views him as someone they simply cannot afford to lose. Even during what many considered a down season, his impact remained obvious. He finished among the top defensive tackles in quarterback pressures despite appearing in only 11 games. His pass rush production continued to rank near the top of the league, proving that even when he wasn't fully healthy, opposing quarterbacks constantly had to account for where he was lining up. Those numbers become even more impressive when you remember the amount of football he missed. Statistics alone, however, don't fully capture what Carter brings to this defense. Watch how opposing offenses prepare for him. Double teams become routine. Interior offensive linemen rarely receive help against average players, but Carter forces offenses to dedicate extra blockers almost every snap. That attention doesn't just benefit him, it creates opportunities for everyone around him. It's one of the reasons Philadelphia's defensive front has become so difficult to handle. Jordan Davis enjoyed perhaps the best stretch of his professional career while lining up next to Carter. Whether it's collapsing the pocket, occupying blockers, or forcing offenses to change their protection schemes, Carter's presence allows the rest of the defensive line to attack favorable matchups. That's the type of value that doesn't always appear in the box score but becomes obvious every Sunday. Another encouraging sign throughout the offseason has been Carter's approach to the team. He reported for organized team activities. He attended mandatory minicamp. While he understandably avoided full team drills because of his shoulder recovery and the obvious desire to protect himself before signing a new deal, there have been no indications of unnecessary drama surrounding his situation. That professionalism matters inside the building. Off the field, there have also been positive developments. Carter has continued working to improve his public image, spending time interacting with fans, signing autographs, and earning praise from within the Eagles locker room. Those are the kinds of details organizations notice when evaluating a player as one of the future faces of the franchise. As training camp officially begins, though, everyone will now be watching for the next move. Will the Eagles finalize an extension before practices become more physical? Will both sides continue moving quietly behind the scenes? Or could negotiations extend deeper into camp while both parties work toward a deal that reflects Carter's value in today's market? At the same time, another positive storyline has emerged around the team involving franchise quarterback Jalen Hurts. Throughout the offseason, Hurts has looked noticeably more relaxed. Eagles fans are used to seeing him with his calm, business-first personality. He has always carried himself with remarkable composure, rarely showing extreme emotion regardless of the situation. That steady demeanor has become one of his defining characteristics. Recently, however, something has looked different. Photos from mandatory minicamp showed Hurts smiling. More off-season appearances captured him enjoying himself away from football. Whether it was spending time on the golf course or working out during the summer, there appeared to be a lighter side of Hurts that fans don't often get to see. That may not seem like major news on the surface, but confidence and comfort can be extremely valuable entering a new season. A quarterback who feels mentally refreshed, physically prepared, and fully confident in his surroundings often plays his best football. The Eagles certainly hope that's exactly where Hurts is heading as another season approaches. Meanwhile, training camp is also expected to produce fierce competition throughout the roster. Several veteran players enter camp knowing their roster spots are anything but guaranteed. Positions like cornerback, wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, running back, quarterback, and offensive line all feature players who will have to earn their place over the coming weeks. Every practice, every preseason snap, and every opportunity could determine whether those veterans remain in Philadelphia or find themselves searching for another opportunity elsewhere. That creates one of the most competitive environments of the entire